So for commas, clauses, and phrases, this is kind of three things stuck together, but they're all very related. The first important thing to understand is clauses. And so to start with clauses, first we have to just get this out of the way that every English sentence needs two things, a subject and a verb. For example, even a two-word sentence, dogs bark, that's a sentence. Dogs, subject, bark, verb. The man is my English teacher. The man, subject, is verb. Great. And so that's a sentence. Also, it's a clause. A clause is a phrase that has a subject and a verb in it. That is a clause. Sentences are made mostly, always, of clauses. And there's two types of clauses we want to talk about today. The first type of clause makes sense on its own. It does not require additional information to be a complete idea. First example that I have is, he studies math every day. Great. I don't know how much he studies, but I understand the situation. If I want to understand the situation, I don't need any additional information. Second one, Paul plays guitar well. How well? I don't know, but I have enough information to know that he plays guitar well. These can stand on their own. They're independent clauses. They don't need any additional information to help them make sense. On the other hand, you can have these clauses. For example, before he visited his mother, he, subject, verb, is visited. Or the bottom one, that the man showed me. The man, subject, verb, is showed. And so these both are clauses because they have a subject and a verb, but they're dependent clauses. For example, number 3, before he visited his mother, what? I don't know what. Something happened and I don't know what it is. I can't understand this sentence completely on its own. It needs more information. It depends on more information. It depends on an independent clause. So these are dependent clauses. Same, that the man showed me. Well, what that the man showed me was what? It's dependent on more information. It's a dependent clause. Dependent clauses cannot be sentences on their own. And so a lot of you will do this. A very common mistake is people saying, for example, I am hot, period, because it is summer, period. And that's a problem. I am hot, period. That is fine. That's an independent clause. It makes sense. But because it is summer does not make sense on its own. If I said, because it's summer, I'm wondering, because it's summer, what? What's the result of that? That's a dependent clause. An easy way to fix this in your writing is to just not put a period after the independent clause. So one full sentence would read, I am hot because it is summer. Perfect. You've got an independent and a dependent clause together. There's no problem. It's grammatically legal. That's what you want to do. So for part A of the worksheet, let's look at these sentences. First one, I saw a beautiful sunset the other day. Subject, I. Verb, saw. Number 2, at the beginning of the day, Jim and Dwight argued. Subject, Jim and Dwight. Verb, argued. The last one, after his cat climbed up a tree, Frank called the fire department. In this sentence, there's two subjects. His cat and Frank are both subjects in this sentence. Climbed and called are both verbs. If you want to get really, simplified, fine. Frank called is the main subject and the main verb. But I think that it's not a good way to think about that because really there are two subjects and two verbs. And the reason is that there are two clauses. After his cat climbed up a tree is a dependent clause. It's good, but if I erased it, the sentence would still make sense. Frank called the fire department. This must be there. This is the independent clause. If I deleted this, the sentence would not make sense. It would be, after his cat climbed up a tree, what? I need more information. But if I had only the blue part, Frank called the fire department, that's fine. I don't know why he called the fire department, but I have enough information to understand the situation that's going on. If you want, you don't have to just put two different types of clauses together. You can also combine two independent clauses. For example, I met her yesterday, I liked her. These are two independent clauses. You can combine them with a conjunction and a comma. Conjunctions are things like and, but, or so. So if we wanted to do that, we'd do this. I met her yesterday, comma, and I liked her. Great. Now you've got two independent clauses in a row. This is much better than lazy simple sentence after simple sentence after simple sentence. If you just have something like, I met her yesterday, I liked her, we went on a date, it was fun, I called her later, we will go out again later. That's not interesting writing. It's very boring, it's not good. So it's good to mix up your sentence structure by doing things like this. Even small things like this can be a big help in your writing. It's important that you make sure that comma is there before the conjunction. Having a period and then starting a second independent clause, a second sentence with a conjunction is kind of silly. I wouldn't bother doing it. If you're going to do that, I would just go ahead and write the sentence plainly. However, it's not totally wrong. If you want to, if the independent clauses share a subject, you can delete the second subject, and you can also delete the comma. So I met her yesterday and I liked her. They share the same subject, so you could just delete the second I and delete the comma as well. So you have I met her yesterday and liked her. The reason you delete the comma is because now the second independent clause doesn't have a subject in it, so it's not actually a clause. So it can't be separated by a comma. It needs to join the main independent clause. That's why you do that. Both ways are perfectly fine. I met her yesterday and I liked her. I met her yesterday and liked her. Both are great. Another example, Mary went to the park and she fed the ducks. Great. Mary went to the park and fed the ducks. Also great. Both ways are fine, so whichever way is more comfortable to you is good. For part B of your worksheet, go ahead and take a look at these sentences. Number 1, I woke up late, I was late for work. Now if you were paying attention, you might be tempted to say, I woke up late, so was late for work. However, it's a unique situation with the conjunction so. The cause and the result both need the subject. So with so, it's a special case. It must be, I woke up late, so I was late for work. Sorry for tricking you. Number 2, Shelley went to the beach on vacation. She swam in the ocean. You can combine that into Shelley went to the beach on vacation and swam in the ocean. Or if you want the full form, Shelley went to the beach on vacation and she swam in the ocean. And third one, the salesman knocked on the door, the residents pretended not to be home. So you can combine this as the salesman knocked on the door, but the residents pretended to not be home. It must have both subjects in it, because if you don't repeat them, the sentence is weird. If you said, the salesman knocked on the door but pretended not to be home, that means the salesman is hiding behind his own door, knocking on it from the outside while hiding behind it, which is an insane meaning. And so make sure if the subjects are not repeated, that you say both subjects. It's very important. Next, we've got phrases. And so phrases, specifically we're going to be talking about time phrases. Phrases are groups of words without a subject and a verb. They might have one, they might have the other, but usually they don't. They are like dependent clauses. They cannot be sentences on their own. They can be attached to independent clauses by a comma, and that's how they can be in a sentence. For example, at the beginning, Ponyboy gets attacked by some bullies. That at the beginning, that is a time phrase. And so it cannot be a sentence on its own, but it can be used to help the independent clause and maybe give some more helpful information. For phrases, you can actually use time phrases inside of a dependent clause too. So you can just take a time word like before, during, or after, and you can put that into a dependent clause. For example, Ponyboy gets popcorn with cherry. Ponyboy tells her about Johnny. I could take that first one, getting popcorn with cherry, the one with Ponyboy, and I could turn that into a dependent clause by going after getting popcorn with cherry. So it's more like, well, it's more like a dependent clause here. Sorry, if I said after Ponyboy gets popcorn with cherry, that would be more like a dependent clause. I've gotten ahead of myself. So after Ponyboy gets popcorn with cherry, he tells her about Johnny. And that's fine, both of those have a subject and a verb in them. And this one just also has a time phrase, this dependent one. If you want to shorten that to make the whole first dependent clause a phrase, you would remove the subject. After getting popcorn with cherry, Ponyboy tells her about Johnny. And so the subject is Ponyboy in the middle of that sentence, in the independent clause. So if we go to part C of your worksheet, we can combine these sentences using things like before, while, or after. So let's say the bell rang, the students sat down for class. Let's say the bell happens first. After the bell rang, the students sat down for class. So we've got different subjects, so we should repeat both of them. You could also say, before the students sat down for class, the bell rang. But that's kind of weird because, well, it's not weird, it's just, this is the one I had, so I like it better. Number 2, the teacher explained grammar. The students paid attention well. Hopefully they happen at the same time. Hopefully I haven't put you to sleep. While the teacher explained grammar, the students paid attention well. Great. Again, different subjects, gotta repeat the subjects. Both of them. Number 3, I called the man Jimmy by mistake. I learned the man's name. You could say, before I learned the man's name, I called the man Jimmy by mistake. You could say, after I called the man Jimmy by mistake, I learned the man's name. Also, since it's a repeated subject, you could remove the I in the dependent clause, change learned to learning. You could say, before learning the man's name, I called the man Jimmy by mistake. And that's fine too, because you have a repeated subject. And so that's commas, clauses, and phrases. It's a lot of stuff, but hopefully it's not too difficult. It is something I'm looking at on the test, so make sure you review this.